If you want to get on more stages, make sure that you're telling stories on those stages. Most people, when they start out, they don't think about telling the stories. All they're focused on is getting on a stage. And so today we're going to be talking about why you need to tell stories so you can keep getting on stages. Because most people, when they think about getting on stage, all it is about getting on stage. They don't think about how that one time they get on stage, how it can set them up for success or failure when it comes to getting on stage. So before we get into that, make sure that you subscribe to the channel here so that you can get updates as soon as I release videos. I release videos on Wednesdays and Fridays here on my YouTube channel. So make sure that you click the bell and subscribe. Leave any comments of any suggestions you have for topics. Would love to cover what you have and hear your thoughts on the specific video that you watch as well. So why do we need to tell stories? Well, I want to go back to a quote real quick. You impress people with your courage to speak on stage, but you connect with them by telling your story. Too often, people, when they're starting out trying to get on stage, all they're focused on is getting on stage. They have no clue what their end goal is. They have no clue why they want to be on stage. They have no clue what they're going to even talk about when they're trying to approach host of events and talk to them about getting on stage, or they have friends maybe that are creating stages and they don't even think about what is it that I can provide the value with? What is it that I can speak on? Why do I want to be on that stage? And those are all very important things that you need to know, because as a host of events, it is difficult to find good speakers or great speakers. You can find speakers, you can find decent, maybe even good speakers, but to find the great speakers that fit in with what you're trying to do, that is challenging. And when you host an event, everything has to come together. You can't just have some person speaking on marketing, another person on sales, and then also this other person's talking about engineering, and one's on small businesses, the other one's talking about corporations, and the other one's just talking about the individual. Or maybe you're at the beginning of businesses talking about that, or maybe now you're talking about scaling. Where are you at? What are you talking about? You can't be all over the place. You have to make sure that it all flows smoothly. So being able to tell the person that's hosting the event is an important thing. But I'm kind of going off on a tangent here. I want to get us back to where I'm trying to be with this. So, why do we need to tell those stories? Well, another quote I always like to say a lot is facts tell and stories sell. Now, you can tell facts all day long. You can have the courage to get on stage and just speak, but it's not going to resonate with people. It's not going to be something that impacts them and causes them to want to move forward with an action, whether it be possibly buying your product or service, whether it be taking action on themselves personally to go more into self development, or whatever your speech was, making them want to take that action. They're not going to do that simply by you stating facts, simply by you just getting on stage. You have to tell a story to create that impact, because this is the key right here. The key is that when you tell a story, most people are going to remember that story. Most people will remember you because of that story. And when you are a rememberable or memorable speaker, you are somebody that people are going to want on your stage or on their stage more and more, because you are memorable. People remember you. But if all you do is tell facts and you're kind of boring, you're not a very good speaker, people are less likely going to want you on stage. And especially if all you do is tell facts, you don't connect with the audience at all, it's going to be hard for people to justify to have you back on. I'm not saying that you can't be, but just being on stage isn't enough. You can't simply get on stage and try to speak. That's not enough. People aren't going to follow you based on you literally having the courage to get in front of an audience. Think about the people that are super successful now. What do? They built up credibility up front, whether it be through social media, whether it be in person. They built up that credibility, so they didn't have to build it up there on stage. But you may not be that big name yet, and this may be a stage that you're on now. So how do you build that credibility? It's not by showing how much you know. It's by connecting with people, because most people are not going to remember all the facts that you tell them. They're not going to remember what your talk was about. But what they will remember, they'll remember how you made them feel in your heart. They'll remember how you made them think about their life. They'll remember those feelings. So you have to make sure you're telling these stories, because those stories connect you with your audience. They're going to be that bridge between you and your audience where it's awkward, but you build that bridge so you're connected together, because you coming on stage, they probably don't know you, or maybe they do, but they don't really know a lot about you. And maybe they want to get to know more about you. But by you telling these stories, whether they want to get to know more about you or they know nothing about you, they can learn about you. And what stories do as well is they help bring people into you. They help people feel like, wow, Philip's just like me. So and so is just like me because of that story. Hey, I'm struggling with that too. Or hey, I, they're probably struggling with it right now, and hopefully you're telling a story where you've came out of that struggle. But even if you are struggling with something right now, talk about it. And I don't like to use the word vulnerability, but that's really what you're doing. You're being vulnerable and letting people know where you're at or where you were at one point. And don't use it as some kind of tool, manipulation tool, but use it as a tool to help you connect to your audience, to connect to that audience out there. Because when you make the audience feel, that's when you're going to get invited back on more stages. And of course, this is not 100% guarantee, but you are more guaranteed to get on stage if you can tell a story to make the audience feel like they need to go do something, feel like they need to take action, feel like they got something out of you. And you do need to provide value too. Don't just make them have all these feelings that really are meaningless. But if all you do is tell facts and you don't connect with that audience to give them those feelings, to make them feel emotions, you're not going to get invited back on stage, most likely. Maybe you'll get lucky and get invited back on, but most people have to feel something from your speech. So make sure you share those stories, share personal stories, share stories of client wins, share stories however you can. If you have to even borrow a story from a situation you heard about that relates to your speech, that's okay, because maybe we don't have a story for every single situation we're trying to talk about. That's fine, but share stories so people can resonate. But you need to also make sure you have some personal stories in there as well, so people can be able to relate with you, because that's ultimately what you're trying to do on that stage. Or I shouldn't say ultimately, but that's one of the things that you should be doing. Ultimately, you need to be thinking about what that end goal is for you. What are you trying to get out of this? And that will help you build up the stories for those speeches. So if you want to be able to get on more stages and be able to be asked to be on stage after stage after stage, tell stories. Don't simply tell facts. Start telling stories, because just getting on that stage, it's impressive, but it's not what's going to keep you on the stages. Making people feel, telling stories to make them bring emotions out that they weren't expecting to bring out at the event. And when they remember you, that's how you're going to get on more stages. So remember, Philip made me feel that way. Josh made me feel that way. Amanda made me feel that way. You made me feel that way. You made me feel amazing. You made me feel like I need to go take some action. I want to keep listening to this guy or this girl because they make me take action. They inspire me to take action. It's beyond motivation. It's not just a feel good, although there are feelings in there, but you want to have them want to take action from what you're saying. So make sure you're telling those stories. Don't just get on stage just to get on stage and speak. Have that end goal in mind. Tell those stories to invoke emotions. And that's how you get invited on more stages. Now, if you like this content, make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel here. Leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts on this. What do you think about sharing your story? Is it important to you? Do you think that maybe you shouldn't share a story? Is a personal story too much? Let me know in the comments below.